See, the problem is when you're bouncing like this, right? Sometimes the ball gets misplaced. That's what it happens. We're gonna say that's how it works. So my ball just wasn't in the right place. Hello, you fucks. Welcome to John Solo's Beer Brigade. I'm John Solo. You are not. You know the drill. And today's my favorite day. It's Monday. Now we get to do this thing. I gotta put a special shout out to my lovely TNA Tracy Johns. To tell a brief story here before we get on the air. About a year, maybe 14, 15 months ago, I was ready to give up on doing this show, Talk to the Beard. I'd done what I wanted to do. And to be quite honest, it was kind of a pain in the ass to continue booking the guests. It's not that getting on the air is a hard thing. This is fucking easy for me. This is what I do. But keeping up on reaching out to new people, getting them on the air and everyone else was just, it was a lot to handle at the same time that I was juggling the narration work, my audio engineering work, and all that fun stuff. Enter Tracy Johns. Tracy came in, she was working as my assistant, and one of the things that I had in mind for her to do when I brought her on was take care of my social media, which included this. I kind of tossed the idea out to her, hey, do you think you could perhaps handle Talk to the Beard and book the guests instead of me? And she, now mind you, Tracy had never been a personal assistant or anything like that, and she's like, well, I can try. And she has done the best fucking job. Way better than I did booking the show on my own. I was bad at it. She's knocked it out of the park. Tracy, I love you to death. Thank you so much for taking care of this for me. And in the vein of that, today we have a guest that we've never had on the air. It's a newer narrator to me. Before we bring him on, I just want to let you know that right now we're working on Ian Lindsay's book. It's a hockey book, which you might have heard me and the old Ramblin' Gremlin talk about that on Thursday. Hopefully she's going to listen to it. But it's called Breakaway. It's book one in the Sin Bin series, and Ian Lindsay is just fan-fucking-tastic. She's awesome. You're going to love it. After that, I believe we're going to be rolling into a Patricia Logan project later this week. Now, I'm going to be out of town Friday through Monday morning. Jody and I are going up to Kelly's Island. That's on Lake Erie. I'm running sound for our band, and we're kind of taking a few days off. Desperately needed at this point. So we're not going to be working from Friday until Monday morning. I will be back in time for the Talk to the Beard episode that I think we have. I'm pretty sure we do. I haven't really looked ahead that far, but I think we do. And yeah, please feel free to join us in Discord. I'm going to be working after Talk to the Beard tonight. Then we're going to be working tomorrow as well. So love you guys. Thank you very much. Now, the guy that I'm talking about here, I want to... Actually, let's do this with him on the air just so we can see him blush. Let me bring on Kevin. There you go. Hey, buddy. How are you?
I'm good, John. How are you?
I'm all, it's been kind of an interesting weekend. We had a couple gigs this weekend. I still run sound for a band, and I had this. One of my buddies is also a sound engineer, and he's also the drummer in our band. And he called in a favor earlier this week. He said he was running a street fair. You know those. They probably have these. I know they have them in Illinois, and I'm pretty sure you're in South Dakota now. I'm pretty sure they have them there too. It's like a little small town. Maybe 10,000 people or less will have a street fair. They'll set up a little stage and they'll have like,
Yep.
like the 4-H band and shit come in, and occasionally they'll have like a rock band, which is what we do. Well, when I was a sound engineer, I did, I don't know, 6 or 8 of these things a year, and they'd last a week. You'd set up your sound system, you'd have in different acts and everything. So my buddy still does this full time. He called in a favor where he was like, I'm not feeling very well. Can you come help out? So last week at the last minute, I had to leave the booth at like 3 or 4 o'clock every day and go help run sound at a street fair, which is just
Wow.
fantastic. At the end of the week, it kind of got a little hairy. Things were going wrong with the system. My buddy really wasn't feeling well, and I know how to be a sound engineer, but I hadn't really run a street fair like this in a long time. So there were a couple major challenges, which so yeah, I had kind of a rough weekend, but we're back in the saddle again. Everything's all good, man. So what I wanted to do...
Things get hairy in the books that you read, and then things get hairy in real life.
You
can't get away from it.
There's a shocking... Did you ever notice, I'm sure you have now, that there are some of these books where the men, they shave themselves down. Like this is a thing now, I guess. Have you ever tried doing that to like your chest, or like, is this necessary for you? Where you like tried to shave all that down before? You ever done that?
Not for about 12 years. I think the hairier, the better.
That's a good statement. You're like 25, so you shaved down when you were like 12? Is that what?
No, I'm 33.
You have a boyish charm about you, Kevin.
Oh. Oh my goodness. Yeah.
One of my one
No,
of
I,
my
I,
well, one of my friends the other day told me that I was complaining because of my lack of genitalia size. It's just I'm built like a Ken doll, and she suggested that maybe I should shave myself to make it look larger. Now I haven't done that since I was probably 15, and I really
yeah.
wasn't doing it for anyone other than myself at that point, I guess. But
Now you are
so
making me. Yeah.
you have a fantastic bio going on here, and I got to read this. Kevin Earlywine is an actor, director, singer, songwriter, and audiobook narrator who hails from Rockford, Illinois. His debut album, Danger, was released February 28th, 2017. Kevin started writing songs for the album in 2012. Finally, in November 2015, he started recording the songs. Kevin went on the road in 2017 with the Danger Tour. Kevin co-wrote
Yep.
a children's musical called The Superhero Show with his good friend Megan Widener. I didn't say that right.
You
Went on
did.
tour. I did? No show. Look at
Yeah.
that. Went on tour 2016 to 2017 school year with the Dakota Players and outreach for the Black Hills Playhouse in South Dakota. Kevin directed an all-ability production of Elf Jr. the Musical in 2019 with the Lifescape Center of the Performing Arts and the Black Hills Playhouse. In 2019, Kevin began work as an audiobook narrator and has produced over 15 audiobooks. He returned to the stage in 2019, starring as Terry in the Black Hills Playhouse production of Sideshow under the direction of Tony-nominated writer Bill Russell. Dude, you've
Yep.
done a lot of shit. Look at you go.
Yeah.
So you
Yeah.
started out as a musician, much like I did. You're a vocalist. What
Yeah.
else do you do?
I'm a guitarist, so I taught myself how to play guitar. I dabbled when I was a teenager, but then when I was in college, I was just around a bunch of musician friends and really fell in love with it. And for me, it's guitar is like therapy, so it's just a way to get all those things out that you want to say but can't. And so that's why I started playing guitar. So,
Excellent. What genre were you? Was it rock? Was it country? Polka? What did you do?
uh, more folk. I would say the Danger album is more folk pop. Um, I wrote all the songs on guitar, and then when I got into the studio, I played with a lot of different instruments, electric guitar and synthesizer and bass, and just made them more pop songs. But everything kind of starts with guitar.
That's excellent. I did an acoustic
Yeah.
act for a good portion of my life, probably 10 years. That's how I made my living. Me and a bass player. And I started out just doing it on my own. I was an acoustic guy, and I'd play basically
Yeah.
any cover you wanted to hear. People would shout out an artist, and I'd play something from them. Then we added a bass
Oh,
player. That was it was a ton of fun, but that was also the drunk years for me too. So I don't remember a lot of it
okay.
now. They would.
I think when I was on the road, that was the scariest thing that would happen is when people would shout out requests. And I mean, sure, sometimes it's great, but when they're like, "Sing Shania Twain, man, I feel like a woman," and I'm like, "Well, I'm not Shania Twain. I will sing a Shania Twain song for you, but
We made it. We even put out with these little table tents we put out in the bars because we were playing like shithole bars. That was my specialty. Shithole bars. I do well in shithole
okay,
bars. If there's bikers and stuff, that's like the home for me. So put out these little table tents with like all the artists that that we wanted you to shout out. People would inevitably take a look at these little table tents. They're like, John Mellencamp, what the fuck? No, Hank Williams, and they'd yell out, well, it didn't matter. I'd figure out something at least close. Which
sure,
I can't tell you how many songs I learned on stage like that, where you're dabbling.
yeah,
Well, let's do it out of D.
I can
Why
do
not?
sports. Let's do it. Yep.
Exactly. And you figure it out on the way. So how did you move from that? Were you an actor in high school? Is that how you got into the Thespian Arts here? How did you run into that?
Yeah. So I was in. I started as an actor when I was probably in eighth grade, and just was really fortunate with the people that I was surrounded, who I was around in high school. I went to a creative and performing arts program in high school, and I was fortunate enough to be involved in Les Mis Allstate. So this was back in like 2007, and I was at an Illinois high school theater festival, and one of the schools that was there was South Dakota, and so I knew that I wanted to be an actor full time. I just didn't know where to go to school, and the University of South Dakota was the most welcoming of the universities, and I didn't even know where South Dakota was on a map. Which is kind of sad to say. I didn't know. I was like, "Where's that?" I guess I'm gonna go into the backwoods of South Dakota and hone my art as an actor. And so I went went to school here, and I really fell in love with the state. And I moved out to Los Angeles for 2 years, and you know, that was really hard to try to be a full-time actor that way. And then I got offered another acting contract here, and so I did arts education and children's theater for many years. And while I was on the road doing that, I would listen to audiobooks. I was in Mobridge, South Dakota, listening to John Solo, Mr. Frosty Pants,
Oh, that's
and
hilarious.
I would listen to all sorts of different audiobooks. And um, when I was on the road, the kids, something they kept asking me was for me to tell them stories. They loved my storytelling. And we talked about that a lot in arts education is storytelling, and how stories come down from generations, and how stories are different culturally. And so that was something I used as a tool to keep the kids engaged, was tell stories. And I was listening to Beautiful Creatures narrated by Kevin T. Collins, and I was like, oh my God, I would love to do that. I would love to tell stories. And no joke, my last tour, my tour partner, she's like, well, I'm an audiobook narrator. I could teach you how to do that. And so her name is Jacqueline DeGraff. She's a great narrator too. She put me involved with a week-long class that another narrator was offering, and I just fell in love with it. I was like, this. I feel like this is every job I've ever done rolled into one. That's kind of the story.
It's there's an interesting when I first started Falcon Sound Company years ago, and I was hiring actors. I was not an actor. I was an audio engineer. I was hiring actors, and I was in a situation where I had a large contract with a publisher of 40 or 50 books that I needed to fulfill, and I only had like two of us that could actually do it.
Sure.
Not enough people. I needed more people, so I started reaching out. And I'm in Columbus, Ohio. This is not exactly the acting mecca, so I had great luck in approaching musicians, mostly vocalists.
Sure.
There's a lot of our skill set that really translates well over to, obviously you're comfortable with being in front of a microphone, and you're also comfortable modulating your voice. And one of the things that we found out very early on, it's not about having a great voice. I, in fact, do not have a great voice, but I have the ability to be 20 characters in a one
Yeah.
person play. That is really the skill set that's involved in doing this, is being able to quickly jump between being different people.
Yeah.
It's like being the single actor in a 20-person play. Those people, vocalists specifically, had a very good knack for that. They could change their voice up. Um, the one thing that I found, though, was my breathing. Now, I could go for a 4-hour gig on stage, no problem. I could do that 3 or 4 nights a week. It really didn't hurt me that bad. I had the endurance. I could do that. But breathing, did
Yeah.
you have to retrain yourself? Any of the habits that you learned as a vocalist, did you have to retrain to be an audiobook narrator?
Oh, I feel like that's my number one struggle still is when I was in school, my acting teacher would always say I was big fast, like everything was big and everything was fast. And it's been a real struggle trying to it's when you're in front of the microphone, sometimes I feel like you have to be really raw and emotional, and not, and the exact opposite of stage acting, and very introverted to show internal character thoughts through your voice. And that's been a very real struggle. Yep.
Absolutely. A good.
Sometimes I watch you and your videos, and I'm like,
Uh,
how the hell does he do this? Because you have such great breath control. I'm like, that ass.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to tell you two things that have helped me tremendously, and one of them was very recently. I've been at this for a
Okay.
while, but I'm not the best voice actor at all. I run into guys, Sean Kristin. I really look up to this guy a lot. If you've not listened to his work, you need to. He's amazing.
Okay.
And in fact, when I first came into this myself, Sean Kristin was always a guy I was chasing. I would get a book. I would do a book, and in the comments, this was when I would still read the reviews and shit. I'm looking at the reviews, and they're like, "Well, John Solo's not bad, but he's not Sean Kristin, is he?" It was like always that. I was always chasing
Yeah.
it. So I recently got the opportunity to work on a video game with Sean. My wife and I both did. It was fantastic fun. I've done I've never done a video game quite like this. I've done video games for like the iStore and shit like that. I've never really done like a this is going to be on somebody's Xbox one day video game. It was
Wow.
exciting. So he hires us, and one of the things I had a really hard time doing was getting over the top because I've been an audiobook narrator now for a decade. Um, I've learned not to scream, for one, into my microphone. That's typically a bad thing when
Yep.
you're acting in an audiobook. I've
Yep.
learned to make my emotions smaller in a way. So, whereas yeah, you just have to be able to control your microphone and control your breathing. In this instance, Sean recognized immediately and said, "You're a great audiobook narrator. You've been doing this a long time. Now forget all of that. Now you're going to be a game actor. Go completely over the top, batshit crazy. That's your job." I had to turn my preamp down a bunch, all that fun stuff, and relearn it. So the first aspect of it, I think, was learning coming from a vocalist world where I was batshit crazy, screaming at the top of my lungs. I had to calm that all down to be able to understand that people, we're literally in people's ears. That's how this
Yeah.
works as an audiobook narrator. That was the first that was just a recent lesson that kind of brought me back to terms with something I'd learned a while ago. I had to unlearn it. But the second one is the gasp breath, or as um, uh, Pat Fraley, I think is his name, another audiobook narrator and coach. He says it's called a slash breath, is what he calls it. And it's this: I'm talking, I'm talking, I'm talking, I'm talking, I'm talking, I'm talking,
Yeah.
which comes from our singing, right? Where we have to do
Yeah.
that on stage. And
Yep.
we had to completely unlearn that. And that took a little while, dude. That was pain in the
And
ass. Are you doing your own editing and that sort of thing too?
yep. So I do everything right now in house. I work with a lot of smaller independent authors, and I actually reached out to us on the breath thing. One of my voice teachers from like 10 years ago, he always said that I put a lot of emphasis on unvoiced consonants, and
Hmm.
I never understood what he meant until I started editing my own audiobook stuff. I was like,
Something.
man, I really, yep.
Yeah, yeah, that's
Oh,
exactly it.
what? Why do I do that? That's weird.
Yep.
But it's
It's
got, I just, this book is the book I'm working on right now is the 30th book. And man, you really notice a difference even 10 books ago. You're like, wow,
mhm.
that's getting a lot better.
with the
So it's hard.
with the breath thing. Because I came from an audio engineering standpoint, and I did all the editing for all of us for a long time. Um,
Yeah.
and I actually I kind of enjoy that type of work. And one of the things that you notice is your breaths. You can see them plain as fucking day in your DAW. You can see where they are, and it's so tempting. I can go through and I can make this sound better. I'm going to go through and turn all these breaths down. And then you get the common new narrator questions of there has to be a quicker way to do this. What software can I use to turn these breaths down for me? And that's the whole game, and we've all been through it.
Yeah.
And it turns out, you even hear kind of some of the sillier ones of just turn your head when you breathe, and none of that shit works. It just doesn't work. The best way to go about it, in my opinion, is just to learn how to breathe naturally again. Like when you're talking to
Yeah.
me like this, learn how to breathe like that in front of your microphone when you're narrating, and that's a
Yep.
bitch. there's a
Yeah.
there's a just a total retrain that happens. Now I've not listened to a whole book of yours, but I have listened to samples of you, and dude,
Yeah.
you're on the right path. You're great. I wish I was there.
Thank,
30 books in, I was embarrassing. You're doing great. Just keep it up.
thank you. Thank
And
you.
we,
I actually, so my boyfriend and I are moving from Iowa back up to South Dakota. So my house is kind of a mess right now. But yesterday on the way home, so I had like a 2 hour drive, and I put in Song of a Weston, and I love it. I haven't listened to any, I mean, because when I listened to you before, John, it was before I was like a full-time narrator. So to listen to you now, like with, okay, I'm a narrator, I'm going to listen to this from a narrator point of view. I was blown away because you had recommended it to me. And so I tried to listen to it like 2 or 3 times, and I just wasn't in the right headspace to listen to like a paranormal. But yesterday I was driving, and it just got me. It is such a great performance. It's
that
so good.
Well, I appreciate you saying that, but I'll tell you the reason that I recommended that book to you. Everyone, Kevin reached out to me not too long ago, and it was just a one simple question: what John Solo book should I get? And I have a couple that I always recommend when people ask that.
Yeah.
And the one I recommended to you was specifically Marie Sexton is one of the best authors, not just in this genre, but in most any genre that I've ever read. She is knock 'em out of the park, drop dead great. There's
Yeah.
one thing that makes Marie Sexton great and why I can say what I just said. It's because she doesn't give a damn if you like it or not. She doesn't. I've talked to her, I've had her on the air, she's a good friend of mine, and she could fucking care less. She's writing it for her, which is
Yeah.
such. Now, not everyone can do that. Not everyone can. And I got to tell you, financially speaking, that's not the best move for Marie Sexton to make because there's a lot of people that just are not that much into her work. But I'm telling you what, she is so fucking good. That made all the difference in the world for a book like that. When you get to narrate a book like that,
Mhm.
for me, there's two things going through my head, and they're exact opposites. The first one is, fuck, this is so goddamn good. I can't wait to sink my teeth into this. I know exactly what I'm going to do here and here and here. And
Oh,
then the second one is, fuck, this is so goddamn good. I need to stay out of its way. I need
yeah.
to just be the background. You need to not think about the narrator. You need to think about the story because it's so goddamn good. Um, I try and tend towards the second one, but sometimes being who I am, sometimes I kind of lean towards the first one. But I try and just stay out of her way, and then I
The
get to
moments
showcase.
where you do, the moments where you do put yourself in there, though, John, it just. Oh, there was one moment. I don't want to like spoil the book, but I'm probably like 2 3 hours into it. Um, the moment there's a scene where Aaron is going to back to get breakfast, and Deacon's not with him, and he overhears the husband talking to the wife, and up until this moment, you've just you just hear, like, that's the great thing in her writing, is it's like peeling back the layers of a mystery. She lets you in right when you need to know it. And that's where that scene, oh man, that's the one that got me. I was like,
Dude,
dang, your use of pausing, oh, it was great.
thank you. And we had a great time working on that too. We worked on that in Discord.
Oh,
What kind of projects are turning you on right now? What kind of projects are like? I'm not even necessarily talking about tropes, but when you see and you look at a project, um, trust me, I remember being a new narrator, and I remember being like, "I'll take it. It doesn't fucking matter. I'll take it. I need the fucking work." But what
yeah.
kind of project really just gets you going now? Is it a trope? Is it an author? Is it a type? What? Tell me about that.
So I'm really fortunate right now to be working on a series called the Not So University series, which is written
Hmm.
by D.K. Sutton. And the one thing I love about Deb's writing is it's very conflict driven. Yes, she writes in a trope, like it's like an age gap, students and professors, but it's how the characters are always first. She develops the characters in such a great way that they feel like real people. Like, it makes my job so much easier as a narrator because the characters there. They're telling you how to voice them. Anything with a lot of conflict, family drama, anything with generational families, I'm like, ooh, that's what I love because it's real. That's something that I can relate to. So that
Uh,
turns me on the most.
Tracy's actually listening to one of those right now. I forget which one. She mentioned it earlier in the comments and I missed it. But
Oh yeah.
yeah, she's listening to one right now and she was really, really, really enjoying it, which is saying a lot. Tracy listens to a lot of fucking audio. So if she likes it, that's saying a good thing for you.
Oh, thank you so much. I think she's listening to the third one. That's the one that just came out, and that one especially. It's kind of interesting to see how people are perceiving that series because it's a hot topic. You've got students falling in love with professors and how she addresses that trope. I mean, it's a touchy subject for certain people, but
Mhm.
that book in particular, I just think has some incredible conflict. This the professor is in a marriage where he's not in love with her. He loves men, and he's made the decision to be with her for 10 years. And just that alone, to get into play into that drama and those scenes is fabulous. So
Dude, that's awesome. How are you
Yeah.
handling your move and your booth right now?
Oh God. So my boyfriend helped me convert. So I was using a we were in the middle of nowhere in Glenwood, Iowa, and I was really fortunate enough to be in this old farmhouse where, there's no noise. And I have a PVC pipe booth with moving blankets, like really do it yourself. And so in this apartment, we've converted a closet to be like the booth, and so we've insulated it and stuff. And that was the first thing I did because it's too much.
Oh yeah.
It's too
Well,
much.
the PVC pipes and the moving blankets, that was our first 100 books. That and
Oh,
a Shure SM7B. Actually, the first 10 were on a road in T1A, and it was too freaking sensitive. We didn't have any real, you could hear traffic going by, birds outside, anything. It was just too sensitive for what we had. So
sure.
we dumbed it down to basically a dynamic microphone, an SM7B, and that helped a lot because we were still just packing blankets around this microphone stand in my garage. And it took me the better part of, I don't know, 4 years, something like that, before we finally built the booth. And
Yeah.
that's a big step, especially. I mean, dude, I mean, I'm sure you're renting, right? So you
Yeah.
can't really reconstruct the entire building or anything like that. There's not much you
Oh.
can do. How do you deal with? Are you just, well, for one, is there a lot of noise getting into the microphone when things go by? Traffic, birds, planes, all that?
The last house we lived at was a duplex, so we were fortunate enough to live right across from the Catholic school. So sometimes I could hear the Catholics, but sometimes
That's they them Catholics, they like to drink and fornicate. Well, it's just something
um,
like that. I'd be sorry for anybody that's Catholic. I'm
no,
not really.
I was really fortunate. They were the first my first 25 books. Oh man, the first four I did were on the road where I was traveling in hotels trying to make this cocoon of clothes so that I could try to narrate, and that was a
That's a
mess.
nightmare. Yeah.
Um, uh, so then I was across from the Catholics, and it was really quiet. And we're closer to the university here, so it's there's a carpet cleaning company right outside, and that's been fun. You've been what I'm going through.
Yeah, I get it, man. What we ended up doing was late nights, which was a bitch. So I had it in the beginning of this when we were doing this. I had like 5 actors a day coming in. And it was a pain in the ass. You'd have them for maybe an hour or two at a time, and every time a car went by, you'd have to do a retake on it, which was just embarrassing and beyond. So that was a nightmare. And I always did my sessions at night. So like 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock at night, that's when I'd fire up because traffic was
Yeah,
quieter, there wasn't as much noise and all that fun, which it is what it is. But
it's
yeah,
what it is.
have you done the night sessions? Have you switched to that yet? Have you tried that out?
No, actually, it's kind of funny. Everybody in this apartment building is mostly younger college age people, and so they're all gone during the day. It's pretty quiet. At night is when they're
Uh,
a little bit more.
yeah,
I
they're
have a
getting
question for
around.
you, John. You
Yeah.
said you've pared your mic down. What do you mean? Like, is it just a certain quality so it doesn't pick up as much noise, or
So now I'm on, because I have a nice booth, now I'm on a Neumann. And it's God. But it also will pick up a mouse farting at like 100 yards. So if you don't
oh
have the appropriate space for it, um, if you don't have, for one, treatment inside the room to stop reflections from going around, which this entire room,
mhm.
rock wool in the walls, I've got baffles freaking everywhere. If you don't have that, it's going to sound really boxy and really like shit. But also,
Yeah.
stopping external noises from coming in was a big deal to be able to use a microphone like this. This is a TLM 103. It's you've taken coaching from Joel. I think Joel now has a 103. A few other
I
guys.
haven't started yet. I haven't started
Okay,
yet.
there's a lot of us use this microphone in particular. This is Neumann in particular. There's a super nice Neumann that a lot of people talk about. It's called a U87, and that was like the beginning of incredible vocal microphones. The problem is, an older one is about $10,000. A newer one is $4,000 to $5,000. You can tell by just the fact that the older ones are more expensive how nice a microphone they are. But the U87 doesn't. It has basically things that we don't need on it. It has the ability to be an omnidirectional microphone, a pickup pattern on either side of the microphone. Really cool, I guess,
Yeah.
if you were doing a dual narration with somebody in the same room. But really, for most of us, we don't need that. So I don't know how long ago it's been. They created the 103, which is basically a baby U87. So it has pickup pattern on just one side. We're not paying for a bunch of shit that we don't need. We don't need the polarity switcher or anything like that. Just a raw microphone that can pick this up. It is perfect for voice acting, just like we do. In fact, Morgan Freeman uses this. I mean, there's a lot of famous people who use this microphone. It's the bee's
Yeah.
knees. Howard Stern, for a long time, used the 103. That being said, you got to have the right room for it. So what we did in the beginning, I had the difference is basically a condenser microphone versus a dynamic microphone. A condenser microphone is a little more high powered and it'll pick up a lot more. That's an extreme
Yep.
advantage. It will pick up a lot more of the nuances of your voice, but that's an extreme disadvantage. It will pick up every bad thing you got going on in your room as well, down to stomach noises and all that shit. So we went
Yep.
from not a Neumann, but a Rode NT1A, which was a nice, semi-nice. Well, really, there's a lot of people making a lot more money than I am in this industry, still using a Rode NT1A. They're good mics. I had two of them. And had one of them set up in our little blanket fort out there, and it was picking up everything. So being
Yeah.
the audio engineer that I am, I decided, well, if we just had a dynamic microphone, a really nice one, it would pick up far less of the room. And it turned out my theory was correct. So I went to an
Yeah.
SM7B, which was a common broadcaster microphone. Like radio station broadcasters really liked that microphone a lot. It picked up far less of the room, but it also picked up far less of the emotions and nuances of our voices too. So
Yeah.
it did its job. And then we finally built the booth again. I used the SM7B for about 6 months until I could afford to get a nice mic. Then I got a nice mic. So
Yeah.
key is, like, if you don't have a decent space, don't fucking bother. Well, what microphone are you using right now?
I use a condenser microphone. God, it's a I don't even know the name of the brand. A CAD, CAD, I think is
Yeah,
what it's
yeah,
called.
I'm very familiar.
Yeah.
And there's a guy named, have you ever seen Booth Junkies reviews on YouTube?
Yeah, I have. Yeah.
Yeah, so he's a big fan of, I think it's a CAD CA100, I think is the model. I could be wrong on that model number.
Sure.
He was a big fan of that microphone for the price and for what it does. Fantastic, and that's a great place to start. But yeah, if your environment is not ideal, a condenser microphone can be problematic in a number of ways. Not only from what I've just described, cars going by, stomach noises, but even down to just picking up the boxiness of a small space.
Yeah.
So the two microphones that are suggested in those scenarios, the SM7B from Shure. There's also Evie makes a great one. I kind of wish I would have done that instead of the Shure. It's called an RE20.
I'm gonna. Well, yeah, I'll have to check these out, John, because I'm always open. You're saying so much. I'm like, okay, yes.
Well,
On
I mean,
this.
you got to understand, I am, and the crowd is bored shitless right now, by the way. They hate it when I start talking tech, but fuck you, it's my show. And
I love it. I appreciate it.
it's so much fun for me to talk to an audiobook narrator because we get to talk tech for a second.
Yeah.
I've said this a number of times, but I'm going to reiterate. There's not very many of us doing what me and you do. There's a good amount of audiobook narrators. There's not a good amount of audiobook narrators working in the MM romance genre. When I find one, I'm like, oh my God, let's bond.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Do you
yeah,
ever find? Do you
go
ever
ahead.
find that when you talk to people, like when you tell people what you do you get a lot of like, huh, I've never met someone like you before?
I didn't.
Probably more than any other job
I
in my life. Yeah.
for a long time I didn't. I would tell them that I was an audio engineer and that sort of thing.
Oh,
Then I would say I'm an audiobook producer, and because
okay.
this is the way the conversation would go down. Okay, now mind you, I'm in Columbus, Ohio, and
Yeah.
audiobook narrators are not very common. Columbus, Ohio itself, the city itself, is actually very gay friendly. Columbus, Ohio is not exactly a homophobic city by any stretch. The Pride Festival is fucking amazing. They have a couple communities specifically that are, before being gay in a town like this was acceptable. We have a place called German Village where it was very acceptable. Just like Chicago has Boys Town. There's like these little
Yeah.
areas that before being gay was acceptable in a large city, you still had. Columbus has always been very gay friendly. But here's the way the conversation goes down, because I'm from a small town outside of Columbus and I still live on the suburbs of Columbus. Um, oh, you're an audiobook narrator. Great. What books do you narrate? Well, you probably haven't heard of them. I narrate a lot of romance. Oh, really? My wife
I
loves to
love her.
listen to romance. Yeah. What kind of romance books do you do? Can you show me a title? Well, I narrate a lot of gay romance. Oh, that was the response I would get, because
Yeah.
I'm from fucking Redneckville out here outside of Columbus. So I came up with a couple different ways to go about this. At first, I would say I'm an audio engineer. Oh, what kind of audio engineering work do you do? And I'd find that that would still go down. We eventually land in the same spot. So this is the way I like to deal with it now. What do you do? I'm an audiobook narrator. Oh, what have you narrated? Have you ever heard of Harry Potter? Yes. I didn't do that one. It works, dude. It
That's fun.
works like a fucking charm. What I bet you get a lot is, oh, my husband slash wife, they always said that I have a great voice, that I should be an audiobook narrator. How do you get into that sort of thing? Do you get that one a lot?
Every day.
Yeah.
Every day. And I'm proud to share my journey of being a voice actor. Everybody has their own journey to do whatever in this realm. And I kind of take a different approach, though. I when people ask me the type of books that I narrate, I'm actually like, I don't publish under a pseudonym. Or one moment happened. This was back. Do you know the film Call Me by Your Name?
Mm-hmm.
So I went to see that, and I was still on the road doing children's theater, and I was doing narrations. And I got so mad at the ending because a lot of stuff in mainstream media for gay content, and not just gay, but LGBT, QI, everything, it has a very gloom and doom um, approach in their narrative. And I was so sick of it. I remember I was at work, and I'd seen that film, and I was like, I'm sick of this. We as a culture need to do better. Because this is not my truth, my story. I don't have a gloom and doom life. I am proud to be gay. I'm proud to be who I am. I'm unapologetic about it, and I'm so proud to be an fiction narrator, because we're putting stories out there that truly inspire young people to be comfortable to be who they are, and that means so much to me. So I mean, sometimes you feel it out and you're like, okay, I'm not going to get into it, but some days I'm on my soapbox and I'm so happy.
Well, the amazing thing I mean, everybody knows I'm a heterosexual male and I have a wife. And I'm very happily married. I love her to death. And I could have been gay. It's just the whole cock thing I had a problem with. That being said,
Well,
it's
John, if you want to try,
they just don't look that tasty.
we'll
I'm
narrate a book
sorry. I mean,
together and we'll see
they just
how it
they just don't.
goes.
Like, I could have been that. It's just like, can I be gay and not have to suck cock, and then I'd be fine. But anyways, the thing that I love about the genre that I landed in, because I was not planning, this was not what I set out to be by any stretch of the
Sure.
imagination. I landed an romance novel without knowing what I'd landed, and then I was like, well, I mean, I'm okay. Let's fucking narrate this book, and it turned into
Yeah.
something that I got into. Two things that happen in the genre. The first is, in MF romance, oftentimes, not always, but oftentimes, it's a very degrading, extreme alpha male hole versus a woman that likes to take it. So it's like, I'm going to take my dick, slap it over your face, and come in your eye, and you're going to like it. And the woman's like, oh, please do that to me. Turns out a lot of people don't like that sort of thing.
Yeah.
The having two dudes in a book really gives an opportunity to have more of an equal standing, and in some ways, at least in the eyes of perceived eyes of the reader, and the way this works. You don't have to get locked into that particular aspect. Now, I'm not saying that women are weak and should take that shit, because that's, dude, my wife would fucking kill me. I'm a little frightened of her. But I am saying that those are oftentimes the tropes that just happen automatically in MF romance that do not in MM romance. You get a much more equal footing kind of thing. I forget what my second point was, but my first one was pretty good with the whole slapping the dick in the eye deal.
Yeah, yeah.
It,
I
now,
actually, I actually recently got asked to audition for an MF book, and I was like, huh, I've never done that. I don't know what
wow.
that'd be like.
Well, it's funny because I've only done a couple of them. That's actually in Discord when we're working. The pussy line comes from one of the only or MF books that I've done in recent years, and it was because I had to keep on saying pussy, and the crowd did not like that one bit. So
Sure.
I'm like, what? You don't like pussy? Because like all of you got pussies. I mean, why do you not like this? They said it was the way I said it, which is why we then said, well, I'll say it like French person. I was like, pussy. And that's how that came about, that running joke that we
Is
had.
that oh,
Yeah, yeah. So
and
when
that's why you
people,
don't get those books anymore.
it could be because every time pussy came up, I said pussy. Well, and the fact is too, that my second point was, from my observation, most of the people that are listening to MM Romance, not all, but most are not gay men. Most.
Shocked me when I learned that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's when are you going to GRL this year, or do you get the opportunity to do that with us?
I don't think I'm going to. I'm gonna be so I'm taking my mom to see Winona Judd. So how it all worked out budget wise. Yep. I'm going to the I'm going to the Judd's tribute. The yep.
Okay, well, that makes perfect sense. Um, that is the best. By the way, I've asked probably 50 people this year on air, so are you going to go to GRL this year? That's the most unique answer that I've heard so far. Congratulations to that. When you
Yep.
go to one of these conventions, when you look out into the crowd, I would say 90% of the people are female. And then about 10% are male. So when you look out, you can easily see that kind of expression. And I think a lot of it is what I was talking about first. The male, the MF romance genre typically just has the women not looking as strong. And I think it's bullshit myself. The MM
Yeah.
romance. Uh, the other thing about this particular genre is the crowd themselves that I was just touching on. I would love for you to experience that, dude. I would love for you to go to like GRL or one of
No.
these events. Um, you can kind of experience it in social media. Um, and I've had a direct experience otherwise in different genres. People are not as nice in different genres as they are in MM romance. We've
Oh,
got an
that is so
amazing community.
true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
The,
well,
the the people that I've worked with this last year are the most beautiful, collaborative, kind people. You know, it's been a joy. It's
yeah.
been a joy.
Yeah, they keep you coming back time and time again. I'm not saying that we don't have our problems, because certainly the community does. Occasionally we have a little witch hunt here and there and that sort of deal. I just stay out of that shit. But for the most part, especially when you go to like GRL or any of these conventions, there's really not that many specifically for us. GRL's the main one, and
Yeah.
when you go there, you can feel the love. It's absolutely amazing. You have
A
been
lot can happen. No, maybe I'll show up.
please do. Actually, I think I can confirm this. I do believe. I think it was yesterday. And while we got the crowd here, where's my well, anyways, Zach, Zach Ailman, and I always say his fucking name wrong, and he's gonna fuck me for it. But Zach is gonna be showing up this year as well, I believe. I
Oh,
just learned that. He
cool.
messaged me yesterday, which is fantastic. He's another guy that hangs out in Discord with us occasionally, and a
Okay.
heck of a narrator. He's gonna be there, and I'm kind of hoping that we can get him on the narrator panel as well. That'd be fucking awesome. Trace does this every time. She's telling me in the comments, Allamon. Yeah, what the fuck ever. Why does he spell it like Ailman then? If he wants people to say Allamon, he should spell it like that. Anyways, dude, you've been a great guest. You're welcome here anytime. Thank you for hanging out with me
Oh,
today.
thank you, John.
Yeah. I know I missed some comments, so as always, what I ask the guests is if you could, at some point in the next day or two, go through and respond to any comments in there that I missed. And of course, this will be up on YouTube for everybody to see as well. Before we leave, what project are you working on right now?
I'm working on Being Loki by Lisa Oliver.
Ta-da! Lisa Oliver. Dude, I've heard that name a
So
number of times.
Lisa's in New Zealand. She's a New Zealand-based author, and she writes a lot of the fated mates books. So she does a lot of fated mates tropes. I'm doing a Tangled Tentacle series with her and JP Sale. So I'm doing all the shape shifting paranormal stuff with Lisa right now. So yeah.
I've spent a lot of time doing those, man. You're gonna have fun. The cool thing about that is sometimes you get to do like really fantastical voices and go out of the box.
Oh
And
yeah.
then you
Yeah.
find out that that's going to be the main character in the next book, and you backed yourself into a corner. But that's a whole nother story. So
Don't get me started on that, John. Hey, John, I have a question for you, real quick.
yeah,
Is there like a certain trope that you don't like to do anymore as a narrator? Like, is there something that you're like, oh my god, or like a genre you're like, oh, a genre where you're like, oh, I don't want to do that because, like, I saw your episode of Ramblin' Gremlin the other day, and you and Melissa were talking about like hockey and mpreg and all that stuff. Is there one that you really don't like doing?
there's one that I do not enjoy doing, but I do it a lot, and that is the daddy trope. I do not enjoy
Oh.
that one little bit, but I've been trying. Nora Phoenix has helped me with this. She was on Talk to the Beard several months back, and we had a long talk about it. And I had to switch the way I looked at it because when I hear somebody say, especially when they're getting fucked in the ass, say, "Oh, daddy, fuck me more," what I hear is, "Father, fuck me more." That's where my mind goes, and that's pretty goddamn gross in my personal opinion. I'm not dissing you. If you like to fuck your
I don't
dad, go
think
right
that.
ahead. But yeah, it's like whatever people want to do and behind closed doors, consensually, what the hell ever, I don't care. But it seems weird to me. So I had a hard time
Sure.
because you got to act like you're really into this. I had a really hard time with that. I've been working very diligently, though, trying to change my perspective on it because, to be quite honest, I get typecast into these a lot. And a lot of people are into the daddy stuff that are reading the genre. So, therefore, I've been working my ass off trying to learn how to like it. It kind of and I've actually turned a couple corners on that. Just actually, a person in the crowd today. This is a good question, by the way. A person in the crowd today, Lotta, actually expressed something to me which kind of changed my opinion on it a little bit. She's fuck, Lotta, you're gonna kill me. Sweden, if I remember correctly, she speaks a different language. English is not her first language. And
Okay.
she stated, "Wow, I'm really happy that daddy doesn't mean dad in my language." And I was like, "Wow, actually, that really kind of changes things, doesn't it, a little bit?" Because that's
Yeah.
what everybody claims. So daddy's not the same as dad. Well, it really kind of is, isn't it? I mean, but it's not to a lot of people. So there you go.
Yeah.
There's the answer. Now I'm just going to lose 50 contracts that I currently have booked because people are like, "What? You don't like it?" But no, I made it
We
plainly
don't care.
clear.
And we're gonna listen to you be daddy. We don't care. We're gonna buy those books right up.
What I hear in the background, grunt for me, boy, grunt. That's anyways.
I have that to look forward to when I
Yeah,
when I in 20
yeah.
years.
Well, so I know you're still relatively new to this. Next time you
Yeah.
come on, you're gonna have a few more books under your belt, and I'm gonna ask you the same damn question. We're gonna see what you say and see if you're brave enough to say it. So,
Okay.
thank you so much. All you got to do is wave at the camera. We'll see y'all next week. Have fun. Good luck.